Good day to everybody everywhere. Welcome once again to the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. Today we will be discussing resolving fears, attachments, and inner conflicts with our special guests, Lama Tsultrim Allione and Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. So thank you so much for joining us again for our webinar series where we discuss topics of health and wellness. We explore tools from Eastern and Western traditions, from ancient philosophies and classical texts, all the way to modern research and current issues in global public health. So before we begin, let me introduce ourselves and welcome you on behalf of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine, where we offer professional training courses and programs on traditional Tibetan medicine at our various centers around the world and online. Our courses range from short lectures to continuing education units for medical professionals, to our full-length flagship program, our 4-year professional training of traditional Tibetan medicine. Our courses are modeled after the traditional Tibetan medicine schools in Tibet and India, and they are taught directly from the authentic classical texts of Tibetan medicine. We have a dedicated team of experienced and passionate Tibetan medicine practitioners. We offer guest teachers from around the world. We feature international clinical internships and more. So we are really happy to be sharing the beauty and wisdom of Tibetan medicine with the world, and that is our mission. Let me tell you a little bit about our beloved institute founder and teacher, Chogyal Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. The Shang Institute exists today entirely because of the vision and the work of our beloved founder and spiritual teacher, Chogyal Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. Chogyal Namkhai Norbu was one of the world's leading scholars of Tibetan culture and master of the spiritual heritage of Tibetan Buddhism and Dzogchen teachings. Rinpoche spearheaded groundbreaking research in the field of ancient Tibetan culture. He founded multiple international organizations for spiritual practice, education, cultural preservation of the Tibetan heritage, and humanitarian relief. Chogyal Namkhai Norbu shared the precious teachings of Tibetan Buddhism and Dzogchen with many thousands of students worldwide over several decades, founding the international Dzogchen community with major centers in numerous countries around the world. Rinpoche worked tirelessly to proliferate the wisdom and culture of the Tibetan traditions. Also, he worked to benefit the diaspora of the Tibetan people, both in their homeland and abroad. Rinpoche's work spanned many decades, it filled many volumes, and touched many lives. And I have no doubt that his teaching will resound for many years to come. It is our honor to carry on his legacy with the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. So if you are at all interested in learning more about Tibetan medicine as a recipient or potentially as a practitioner or just for your education, please contact us. We would love to collaborate with you. You can learn more about the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine at tibetanmediциneschool.org. And please do join our email list, follow us on social media, connect with us on Facebook and YouTube. We love to collaborate with you, and we really greatly appreciate your support. Finally, before we begin, I would like to mention the American Tibetan Medical Association. The American Tibetan Medical Association, ATMA, is a professional organization for Tibetan medicine practitioners here in the United States. Through this organization, you can learn more about traditional Tibetan medicine. You can find a qualified practitioner in your local area, and you can find a qualified training program. So the American Tibetan Medical Association is accepting memberships professionally, student memberships, and just community supporting memberships as well. So if you're interested in getting more involved with the national and global Tibetan medicine community, please do check us out at American Tibetan Medical Association.org. We would love to collaborate with you. So today it is my great honor to welcome our special guest, Lama Tsultrim Allione. Lama Tsultrim Allione is a best-selling author, internationally known Buddhist teacher, and the founder and resident Lama of the extraordinary retreat center, Tara Mandala, in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Lama Tsultrim Allione's literary works include Women of Wisdom, as well as Feeding Your Demons, Ancient Wisdom for Resolving Inner Conflict, and Wisdom Rising, Journey into the Mandala of Empowered Feminine. Lama Tsultrim continues to guide the Tara Mandala Center and work with thousands of students all around the world. Lama Tsultrim, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you to Genla.
Also, I'd like to welcome our second guest and our ongoing host of the Shang Institute webinar series, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo is a practitioner of traditional Tibetan medicine with over 30 years of experience in clinical practice as well as teaching. She received her advanced degree from the Lhasa University School of Traditional Medicine. Menpa Wangmo is the director of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. She teaches Tibetan medicine all around the world, developing many programs and working with many students in the United States, Spain, Italy, Russia, and many places. Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo is also the co-founder of the American Tibetan Medical Association, the professional organization for Tibetan medicine here in the United States. Menpa Wangmo, it's wonderful to have you here back again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, it's really a pleasure to be here, and we're really looking forward to this discussion. We have a lot of fear and anxiety in our culture today, a lot of social upheaval, and not just today, but ongoing basis, we have a lot of attachments to work with. And so with these incredible tools from the Tibetan Buddhist Dharma and the insights from Tibetan medicine, I'm sure we can really get a lot of profound insight into our own condition and how we can work on that level. So first, let's start with Lama Tsultrim La. Thank you so much again for being with us. So how has things been for you lately with the global COVID-19 crisis and our just current last few months of situation? What kind of things are you working on, and how have you found your works to be lately?
Yeah, I felt that there was really a message that was trying to be communicated from the mamos in the COVID crisis. And I wanted to bring people together to talk about how not to go back to normal and to get the message somehow that this was bringing us. And so I created a symposium that was a big work that I did. It happened in May, 22nd to the 25th of May. There were 12 speakers from a lot of different traditions, really trying to look at what can we learn from this situation, not just how can we get through it, how can we get back to normal, but what is it about the earth having a fever and then so many people having a fever, and what is the interdependence that's happening here, that this isn't just a random event that's coming by chance right now. It's a continuation of a process that's been going on for a long time. So that was something that I did. I co-hosted that with Shiva Ray, who's a well-known yoga teacher. And we had, as I said, 12 speakers. So that's sort of a more public thing I've done. And then I've also used this time to practice personally, and also, I've been teaching online quite a bit. And one of the hidden potentials of the situation is that because I can't travel when it's online, people from all over can attend that couldn't necessarily attend if it was in person at Tara Mandala, which is fairly remote. So that's one of the beautiful things I see about this crisis, is that it's sort of given us a more global connectivity, which is what you're doing also with this. And so I feel there's a lot of good that can come out of this. And of course, there's a lot of suffering that's occurring as well. I've led things online. I did an online chöd practice and invited people to just receive it or to do it together who knew it. And talked about Chöd Namkha Norbu Rinpoche, and it was his chöd that we did. And then I led Feeding Your Demons online also, to work with the fear that's coming up now for many of us, and just various things like that.
Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting in this current time. Many of our guests who are, in the field of Dharma work and Dharma practice have commented similarly themed as you just said, regarding how in this current situation with our quarantine situations, it's an opportunity for personal practice, for retreat, for doing more of our meditation work and personal work, while at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to really connect internationally and connect more with other people. So it's kind of these kind of opportunities that we have in this situation, despite the big challenges of this kind of situation. So you mentioned our institute founder, Chogyal Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche, and I was wondering if you could just give us a little bit. I know that you mentioned him in your book, and on some of your works that I've been going through, you mentioned your connection with him. Can you tell us just a little bit about your time with him and how he touched your life, and how that may have influenced the work that you came to focus on with Feeding Your Demons and your other amazing projects?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he's very big presence in my life, and still is. He's not in his body now, but I feel his presence so strongly still. I met him in 1978 in Italy, and I was visiting Italy with visiting a man in Italy who became my husband later, Costanzo Allione. And I knew one Italian besides him, and that was Mario Monetti. And now Mario has passed away quite a while ago, and most people maybe don't know who he was, but he was a very early student of Rinpoche. And he had been in India with me and Paolo Branato, Pupe, and Anne-Marie Klaus. And we had studied with Abu Rinpoche, who was the grandson of Shakya-Sri, a great yogi, great yogi. Shakya-Sri is amazing. And Abu Rinpoche was also amazing. So we had all met there. And then when I met Costanzo and I went to Rome to visit him, I said, do you know Mario? It's kind of like Italians say to me sometimes, oh, you're from America. Do you know my cousin Giorgio? But it turned out that actually his cameraman, he was a filmmaker, his cameraman did know Mario. And so I found Mario, and Rinpoche was actually in Velletri outside of Rome at this house that Mario was renting with Paolo and Pupe and other people. And he was working on a film on Milarepa and also talking about Tibetan medicine. And so I met Rinpoche at that time. And then I moved to Italy, and you know, as soon as I got there, I began to study with him. And then stayed in Italy until 1986, and was there when we found the land that became Marigar. And, you know, there were so few people at that time of Rinpoche students, maybe 20, 30, maybe 50. If they were all together. But so it was a very special, intimate time that we had with him. And, you know, I remember we just always hanging out with him all the time, you know, eat with him and just talk and practice. And we just could be with him. I was also in the 1988 pilgrimage to Mount Kailash with him after I came back to America, and then continued to study with him. And then eventually he came to Tara Mandala first time before we had any buildings, and visited, stayed in a house nearby. And then he returned in 2014, I believe it was. And then we had the temple built, which is a 12,000 square foot, 3-story temple with in the form of a mandala. And so he came then and gave empowerment, and a very traditional empowerment. And I actually never had a traditional empowerment from him. And then he came back shortly before he passed away, and he taught again, and he taught the medicine Buddha at that time at Tara Mandala. And then he said to, one of the last things he said to me was, I was of course always inviting him to come back, and he said, "If I'm alive, I will come." And so he wasn't able to stay in his body, but I still feel his presence constantly.
Thank you so much. Yes, as do we. Absolutely. Well, I'm really glad to hear that he had the opportunity to share the Medicine Buddha teachings with you guys there. That's always been something very important for our institute with our Tibetan medicine studies as well.
Yeah.
And I know that you worked with him with a lot with the practice of Chöd. Now, many of our viewers are a little bit familiar with the lineage of Chöd meditation and with its founder, Machik Labdron, the famous yogini. But of course, many people maybe have not had the chance to connect with that at all. Would you be able to give us just a little bit of a description of this famous practice of Chöd and how we work with that and just kind of what it's all about?
So Chöd, the word actually means to sever or to cut. And it was, as you said, founded by Machik Labdron in the 11th century. Her teachers were Sonam Lama, who was a student of Aryadeva and Padampa Sanjay, and then Padampa Sanjay. But Sonam Lama was her teacher before Padampa Sanjay, but her first teacher was Drapa Ngoshe, who was the Tertan, of course, of the medical tantras. And one of the things that I was interested in finding was the birthplace of Machik Labdron, because everybody would always say, it's in Lop, it's in Lop. And I would say, well, where's Lop? And nobody seemed to know where Lop was. And so Lama Jurme, who he'd be great to have on this program at some point, he's a Tibetan artist from Minderling, which is not far from the area of Dranang monastery where Drapangoshe was from. And he sort of put out word to his people in Tibet to find out where Machi Glaptrim was born. And so what he discovered is that actually she was born in the Dranang Valley, which is it's a pretty big valley, and it goes up and it kind of branches out two directions. And then the Dranang monastery is near the river at the head of that valley. And so what they discovered was that actually Lap is not a place, it's a family name. It's like a clan name. And that this clan of Lap lived in that valley, which then made real sense of why she ended up studying with Drapangoshe, because she would have basically just come down the valley to the main monastery at the head of that valley. And that's where she began. And so I actually went there to that place in 2010 and did tsok at the Gana Puja at the site. They have a flagpole that marks her house and so on. So that was amazing to get a more sort of personal sense of where she was from in Tibet. And of course, I'd been to Zangri Kamar several times, which is where she settled from the age of 32 on until she passed away in her 90s. And that's not all so far, you know, it's all kind of walking distance. It's on the opposite side of the river. It's the same side of the river as Samye. And it's a very beautiful place, actually, Zangri Kamar. It means the red house at the Copper Mountain. And so the monastery is kind of up on the hill, and there's caves. There's a bunch of caves there, and her cave, and her students' caves, and they're all marked. And then you go down some cliffs, and then there's a plain, you know, sort of fields now, barley fields, and then the Brahmaputra River. So that's where she settled. She started her life as a young nun, or at least she had the 5 vows of Genyen. Whether she took Getsul is questionable. But in any case, she lived as a young monastic, and she made her living, you could say, or really she paid for her spiritual education by reading the Prajnaparamita Sutra. And she was a fast reader. And so that was valued, because the faster you could read, the more times you could read it. And it was considered that the more times it was read, the more merit would be gained by the sponsor of that. So she grew up as a nun, and she was quite extraordinary, really. She became well-known, really famous for her knowledge. And then at a certain point, she had indications in her practice, and also advice from her teachers to take a consort. And so she did, and she joined with Topabhadra, who was an Indian yogi. And she had 3 children. And this really put her in a very different place. She was criticized a lot for sort of being a fallen nun and disrobing and so on. And she didn't really have any means, any money or anything. And she was a mother of 3 with this traveling yogi, which you can imagine. I mean, this is Tibet. It's not California or Hawaii. You know, it was cold and high and intense, and she had fallen out of favor. She wasn't respected anymore. And so it was a very difficult time for her. And gradually things happened. She actually ended up leaving her children with Topabhadra, going back to her teachers, having a realization of the deeper meaning of the Prajnaparamita Sutra, and particularly the meaning of the word demon. And And really that became the base of the Chöd practice, the understanding and the feeding of the demons. And the demons or maras, and in Tibetan teacher.She is the four demons, are really interior obstacles that block us from being completely awake. And so she developed this practice of offering the body, the physical body, where you visualize that your consciousness leaves your body. Your consciousness enters into the heart of trauma. It's not always trauma in all Chöds, but in most, at least Nyingma Chöds, it's trauma, who's a blue-black, wrathful Dakini. Dakinis are the embodiment of the wrathful feminine wisdom. And so your consciousness goes out, and now your consciousness is there, and your body's a corpse. And then the Dakini comes and she takes her knife, her trigu, and she cuts around the top of the skull of the corpse, which is your body, and then takes that head, top of your head, skull cup, and places it on a pyre of 3 skulls that represent 3 kaya. And then the rest of the body is chopped up and put inside. And then there's a process of sort of transmutation of that physical corpse. It's expanded, it's purified, and it is transformed into whatever the guests who will be invited to eat from that need or want. And so then these guests are invited. Meanwhile, this is your corpse. So you've undergone your own death. And in that process, you do poa. So one of the ways that Chöd is described is as the totality of all practice, that everything's in it. So poa, which is the process of leaving the body at the time of death through the top of the head, that takes place when you go out and the consciousness leaves and becomes trauma. So there's 4 main guests that are invited, and they all feast on the substances in this now 3,000 times bigger skull cup. And then gradually they're all satisfied. Some of them are upper guests, so like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and the protectors. And then there's the black guests, the disease-bearing beings, obstacle makers, and debt holders. And those are the ones that I focused on in my book, Feeding Your Demons. But I'll talk about that later. But and then finally, there's the variegated feast of all the 6 realms. And so all these beings come and feast on your body, and then they're satisfied. And then you give them a gift of the teaching, of the Dharma. And then you do the concluding parts of the practice. And one thing I forgot is after that actual offering of the body, there's a moment in our Chöd where we enter into the non-dual state, Dzogpa Chenpo Macho A, and just rest. And then there's the teaching of the sutra, which is the gift of the teaching, and then the final closing parts of aspirational prayers and dedication of merit. So what's really happening here is a removal of the attachment to the physical body. We cling so strongly to our body. When you think about working, you work for your body, right? To feed it, to clothe it, to house it. You're always trying to make your body happy. Tibetan medicine, make people feel better. To feel better, you want certain pleasures for your body and so on. So we have such a focus on this thing, which is impermanent and which we just have for a little while and then it falls apart. And so part of the true practice is to overcome that grasping at the physical body, but also the grasping at all of our various kinds of fixations, our clinging and grasping at attachment. And so because we undergo our own death in the practice, that's a shamanic theme. Shamanic initiations always have this process of death and then meeting various beings in the underworld or the post-death world. And often those beings that we meet, this is in shamanic initiations, those diseases that the shaman meets in the underworld become the diseases that shaman can cure. And so in this case with the Chöd, the disease that you meet is ego clinging, daksin, not sin, self-clinging. And so you go through your own death, your body's offered, and then you return, you come back, which is what happens in shamanic journeys too. And in the shamanic journey, you come back as a shaman, as a healer. And so Chöd is also used as a healing practice. That's an important part of Chöd that we don't do so much in the West, but in Tibet, it would really, when there would be an epidemic, for example, and you see in the biography of Ayu Khandro, that's in my first book, Women of Wisdom, she's called in when there's an epidemic connected to animals, and it's probably something like hoof and mouth disease. And she's called in to heal it. And she does by connecting with the energy of that disease and feeding it through the Chöd practice. And also epidemics like cholera, a lot of contagious diseases in Tibet. And so Chöd was used to heal, and also for psychological problems or possession from entities, demons, or whatever, as kind of exorcism practice. And so it had a lot of different applications. For me, I started to teach the Chöd practice under Rinpoche's guidance in 1984. And when I started to teach it, I felt it was important that it didn't become just kind of like a cool thing, that, oh, I can sing in Tibetan and I've got this cool drum and bell and, kind of almost like an ornament for the ego, that it really was important that people really connected to what these demons were for them, that there wasn't like a Buddhist concept of self-clinging, that it was actually, what is this in my life? How does this manifest in my life? And that's when I developed the practice of feeding your demons, the 5-step process that I taught. It was that then became this book and so on. But it was really as a way to teach Chöd in the West and make it not just sort of theoretical, but have a real impact on people's lives in a practical way. So that's a little summary of the practice and the history.
Wow, thank you so much. Yes, it's incredible how this practice of Chöd, you mentioned, it's known as the totality of all practices, and we can see that because it's combining kind of the full spectrum of aspects of the way we can do meditation or spiritual practice, everything from the shamanic kind of journeying aspect that you mentioned, all the way through the gift of teachings from the kind of sutra aspect, or as I believe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche on our previous session said, the gift of information. So like the real news in that way, all the way through the kind of, you mentioned the moment of total integration with the kind of the state of our Dzogchen state. So this kind of full spectrum. And then also working with kind of the full spectrum of the realm of beings. And so, yeah, it's incredible how this can be this totality. Wow, excellent. So thank you so much for that summary. And then in a few moments, I would like to go into talking about where you took that from there, because I know that the practice you developed really kind of springboards from that general kind of universal application of the Chöd to a kind of more curative, specific, kind of individualized way. But I'll give you a quick break from talking, and then let's move now and talk to Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. Menpa Wangmo, thank you so much for joining us. How have you been lately? How has your teaching and projects been these days?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful to listen, Lama Tsultrim. Thank you. When I'm listening her talk, I forgot also I need to say something. So let's see now. So, okay, so how I been in the lately? So two things. One is sort of like we are sort of like a lockdown. This is a little bit unusual for us. Such a long time, such a big group, sort of like a lockdown, because where I am, this is that one of our center, the Tegegar East, is such a beautiful center. Normally in this sort of like a season, we have a lot of people from all the world. So, but this time we don't have guests so much. So the reason of the issue. But the meantime is good. We are doing a lot of practice through the Zoom. As Lama Tsultrim said, is that somehow we are locked down. Looks like our life is became more smaller, more sort of like closed. But the meantime is opened a larger community. So we locked down our physical sort of like a space, but then we opened larger space on the sky, thank of the technology, so we able to reach all of the world. So I'm not able to attending a lot, but is our community, we doing practice different times, different region they leading. So I think if you're willing to 24 hours, we can do something practice. So this is a really wonderful. Another one, also, this is a great moment, sort of like we apply to our practice, because our precious master, also I'm one of the Nagano Rinpoche's student. I couldn't say really is I'm a student, because I don't feel like I have quality to claim he's a student. But simply, I would say I'm one of his follower. Also over 30 years, now close to 40 years. So Rinpoche taught a lot of teachings. But when I'm thinking, is more than 90% of the Rinpoche's teaching, we are not sort of like in familiar. And I'm not saying all the Dzogchen community, I'm just talking myself. So this is also a great opportunity for us, for me, is like apply those things, try to thinking. So this is also a great moment to read the Rinpoche's books, to apply the practice. And we have a lot of the Sangye Mahasangha teachers, yoga teachers, dance teachers. We have many precious teachers, and then senior community members. So this is a very good one. Another one, what I'm doing is also dealing with the people who sick by the COVID-19. So unfortunately, as many people had this issue, and in particular Tibetan community also affected this time. So we are helping those people's For the most Tibetan community people, we sending the herbs and then advising the diet, the behaves. So it's a thank sort of like the Tibetan herb is very effective to those conditions if they're not too serious. If they needed sort of like a ventilator, yeah, then they need to run to the emergency. But before that, we have many different way of dealing with those people. So that part is doing very well. And then the other things, yeah, the big number of people has the stress, fears, anxieties, depression, so on and so forth. And then we come up a idea. We try to starting these webinars to educate the people, to tell the people what we can help them, sort of like to release or to help. It's to be with them. Simple is to be with them. So the one of the Rinpoches, I mean, he has many, powers, many skills, many potentials. But is he's one of his main thing is to help the humanity, to help the sentient beings, not this way, not that way, not this group, not that group. So we are the Rinpoche's follower. Special, we are dealing with the Tibetan medicine, and the medicine itself is man. Man means is a benefit. So then we decided, the board of our school, we decided we run this, we organize the webinars. So this is the great way to help. And then through the work with other teachers, like this time we have a Lama Tsultrim. So, and then also we got a lot of good masters, teachers involved with us. They came with us. So I think we able to help to reach to the many thousand people. So which is very great. So I'm with my team, School of the Tibetan Medicine team in Russia, in Europe, and then here, we all dedicating this part. And the rest of class, we are running through the Zoom. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you so much, Menpa La. So, Menpa Wangmo, I know that you have quite a personal history and experience with this famous practice of the Chöd meditation. Can you just share with us a little bit anecdotally about your experience with the Chöd and sort of how this has played into your life and your practice? Just whatever you'd like to share a little bit about these things.
Thank you. So yeah, as Lama Tsultrim said, I learned from our dear master, so which we call is the Kandu Kegyan. And then normally I play that, so I learned that, and then I try to play that, apply that. So in generally, in Tibet, as Lama mentioned before, can be used to two ways, or can be used also many other reasons, but simply two ways. One is like to obtain their own knowledge, to obtain the sort of like understanding real nature. So this kind of they applies that one. So when we say is okay, if you needed to see something, your real nature, simply, which is that the something if you're looking, so that always says be aware. So if you really be aware to want to see your mind, first thing what we need to do is we need to have a calmness. To have the calm, what we need to do, many people we cannot get calm because we believe is the lot of thoughts is coming with us. So these kind of cases, you do the Jö practice, and the Jö can help you to cutting all your thoughts, all your egos, all your attachments, all your jealousies, whatever we thinking, those like the negative aspects. So the Jö means is to cut. So this is sort of like do the personal obtain our own sort of like a clarity or own practice. So they do the Chöd practice. That is one we do. The second we do the Chöd practice is to other people, or as also before Lama mentioned, Tibet we use as a healing way. So we use the Chöd a lot to people who sick. So in the Tibetan medicine is a very holistic system. Tibetan medicine is, as we say as men means is that the benefit. And who's working on that field, we call the Menpa. Menpa is like the benefactor, sort of like that, the person who in charge or who's working on that field. So the Menpa and then ancient many Menpa is practitioners. An example, my beloved teacher, Nanganobu Rinpoche, he also a doctor. His teacher, Chengchu Dorji, also a doctor. So when we're looking those, like the famous, those doctor, I mean the masters, all of them is doctor. Of course, they are not doing same like what I do today, prescribe the herbs, do the kunis, do the this, that. They're not doing physically that much. But is them doing is more larger way. They're able to reach people's their feelings, fears, depressions, anxieties, entire aspect. They make it as like a body, as like exactly a mandala. And then every corner they're able to reach to the persons wherever they need it. So this kind of reason is like that the Chöd is one of the very good practice to apply to a patient. So this is also Chöd is adopted into the Tibetan medicine, so the part of a healing system. So of course, when we're looking like sufferings, if a patient comes to see us, what they're suffering, either physical suffering or the mental suffering. So these two is sort of like two main sufferings. Between these two, either physical suffering or the mental suffering, affects to the energy. So then energy is imbalanced. So this kind of cases is like the physical part, we do not do a lot of Chöd practice. Physical aspect is we believe is more need to deal with herbs or the diet behave. But its energy aspect or the mental aspect is not so much things to do with the diet behave. Of course, could help, but it takes longer time. So already is polluted enough, already is crazy enough, already is sort of like imbalanced enough. So this kind of case, what we do, they do the Chöd practice. So that is like a quicker way to the clean and a faster, more sort of like efficiency and then quicker. So this kind of case, we do the Chöd practice a lot. So before I came to West, I was working in Eastern Tibet in a remote area. We time to time, I mean, in Tibet, we don't have a lot of like emotional sort of like disturbed people. We don't have a lot. But sometimes we do have a completely crazy people. And then if they come up like the crazy people show up, we don't have like today Western like a hospital. We don't have like a antidepressant, anti this, anti that. We don't have this lot of medicines. So mainly what we try to deal with, the Tibetan herb deal with the physical body and the practice deal with the emotional or the mental aspects. So we do a lot of Chöd practice during this kind of time. So it helps a lot. So this is sort of like my own experience as sort of like do Chöd practice. So this is my experience.
Thank you so much. So working with that Chöd practice on different levels for the mental illness and these psychological imbalance. That's fascinating. So if we're applying these principles of Chöd, working mostly with our psychological, mental, emotional health, and then we're talking in the context of attachment and fear and our inner conflicts, our anxieties. So Menpa Wangmo, will you share with us a little bit from the perspective of traditional Tibetan medicine? Because I know that we have a strong connection between the cause of disease and the nature of our health in general, and these disturbing emotions, this fear and attachment. I know that it's very fundamentally linked together. So can you explain a little bit how Tibetan medicine teaches about fear and attachment and our health?
Okay, so I think the Tibetan medicine is fear, attachment, those kind of the two reasons sort of like can happen. One can happen is that something you had sort of like the external sort of like something scared or something disturbed. Another one is internally imbalanced. So in generally we said is like when we look in the cause of the disease, we say there is two causes. One is a long-term cause of the disease and one is a short-term cause of the disease. Sometimes also we say a direct and indirect. So indirect cause of the disease also like a long-term, same as like a long-term. So what that be is like the three poison is the long-term or the indirect cause of the disease. And the direct or the short-term cause of the disease is the three dua, which we call like lung chiba and the pegen. So what we say is in the Tibetan medicine, this that the long-term three poison and the short-term three dua or the three nyeba, or the translate they call is like three humors. I'm not sure exactly that the three humor is same as like what we're talking about, but it is simple words. Yeah, there's a three humors. So these two is that the two independent in the sort of like two related. What we say is like that the attachment as the seed of the attachment, like a fruit, the lung wind element is sort of like the fruit of the attachment. And then the seed of like hatred, and then as the fruit is the bio or the chipa. As the seed is the ignorance, and then the fruit as the flame or the pagan we call. So which means is that if you have too much attachment, and then that imbalance that your wind element, because is these two is sort of like the same nature. That also makes sense. If we attach to something or someone or something, and then first symptom is we're not able to falling asleep, then that disturbs our sleep. Then that disturbs our sort of like concentrations. Then later, then we lose appetite, then we have pain here, pain there. So all those symptoms, when we observe the symptoms, so when we go to the pathology, we don't tell the person your attachment is high, no. Then what we say is your lung element, which is wind element, is high, which or otherwise your wind humor is high. So which means is that why at the moment wind humor is high, because you had this attachment with you, and then your attachment is increased. Same also like heat rate. Heat rate is like all the angers, aggressiveness, so on and so forth. If we have that high, then first thing symptom what we have, all the blood disease, all the liver problems, all the lymphatic system problems. So at this kind of moment also, yeah. So any kind of like that, the disease which is connected with the heat natures, fever is under that, contagious is under that, and then the blood disease, liver disease, lymphatic system problems. So all those come, this is a huge category. So these kind of things, what we say is like we don't tell the person your attachment is high. We tell them is your tipa or the heat is high. Same also if we have a lot of ignorance, delusions. And then that delusion can causing sort of like increasing the pagan, which is the earth and the water element, or the flame humors. The symptom, how we know that, is the person is so tired, no sharp mind. So the mind is becoming very dull, no memories, no appetite, no able to digest, gain weight, so on and so forth. Then there's much more. So all those kind of appears. Why? Because is that there is something connected with your attachment. No, that your like delusions. But we don't tell the person your delusion is problem. We tell the person as like a medical aspect. We tell the your flame humor or the earth and the water element is dysfunctioned. So when we treating time, since we understanding since the beginning these kind of things, and then later we will have is better to treat. Sometimes is without involve this attachment, he treated those like without connected to the long-term distance, directly short-term also can cause because wrong diet, wrong behave. So this kind of time we treat more like the medical aspect, and the other one we treat with the dual way. The physical, we take the herbs, change the diet, do the external therapies, but the attachment, these kind of things, then we do the practice. So mindfulness is one important, breathing yoga is important, chanting mantra is important. Then if you know how to do the Chöd, then Chöd is important. So those kind of things, that is the Tibetan medicine sort of like connections between these three poison and the three humors.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Menpa Wangmo. So it's just a fascinating theory how we have our direct correlation with our disturbing emotions in a fundamental way, and then our kind of elemental balance of our elemental humors, or as we call the nyepa. So our attachments directly being the cause of this imbalance of our lung or wind humor, and this kind of direct correlation. So that's a fascinating theory and the foundation of Tibetan medicine. Wouldn't it be helpful if we worked on our own meditation practice and cultivating our psychological capacity? Then maybe someday you could just go to the doctor and they could just say, oh, you have too much attachment, and then we can realize that and correct that right away. That would be nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. So, Lama Tsultrim. So we were talking about how this amazing kind of full spectrum practice of the Chöd, as you described earlier, and in this practice, as you described, we kind of have this sort of universal approach, this full spectrum, working with the kind of full spectrum of our psychology and the full spectrum of kind of the realm of beings in the universe. And then we're kind of working with the idea of transforming our own dimension using this kind of vivid imagery and this kind of illustrative imagination and visualization. And we're creating the kind of condition where we are capable of offering to all the beings in the whole universe exactly what they need to be satisfied. And we visualize that we have the capacity to transform into that offering. And then in that way, we can work with our own fears and attachments, and we can also hope to have that sort of aspirational benefit for all beings in the whole universe. Now, in your method and your system that you have been working with in your book, Feeding Your Demons, you have sort of translated this and synthesized the foundation, the fundamental themes of this sacred Chöd practice into a system that is applicable for a kind of individualized care, and how we can sort of take those principles and work with our own inner demons and our own inner conflicts in a very individualized and personalized way. And I have to say, I just found this to be incredible and really inspiring and fascinating. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this kind of system, this methodology that you're working with, how you're transforming the foundations of Chöd practice into this system of feeding your demons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as I said before, it was really a method that I developed in order to teach the Chöd practice and to make the demons more personal and more real, was to have people figure out what is it that's really taking my energy, what's literally taking my energy, what's draining me, what's eating at me, and then those are our demons at a personal level. And so essentially, maybe should I describe the 5 steps of feeding your demons?
Yeah, please do. However you'd like to share.
Okay. Well, you begin by first finding where you hold this in your body most strongly. So maybe everyone that's listening could just try this as where I'm speaking, so it becomes just not me talking. So if you think about something that's draining your energy right now, could be a physical ailment, it could be an emotional situation, whatever it is that you feel is your demon right now, and feel where you feel that in your body. Where do you hold that most strongly in your body? Right? And you scan your body thinking about it, and then you feel, oh, that's in my heart, or that's in my stomach, or that's in my shoulder, or that's in my head. Once you locate it in your body, then you sort of examine it in your body, and you feel, if this had a color, what color would it be? If it took shape in my body, what shape would it have in my body? And does it have a temperature? What temperature is it? And what is its texture or consistency? So that's the first step, is finding it in your body. And then you imagine that energy that's in your body with that color, consistency, and temperature goes out of your body and becomes personified as a being. And however it appears, a being with arms and legs, with a color, a density, surface of its skin, does it have a gender, and so on. So you imagine it goes out of your body, you see it, see how big it is, and then the look in its eyes. What's the look in its eyes like? What's its emotional state? And then you ask it 3 questions. What do you want? What do you really need? What's under that want? And how will you feel if you get what you really need? So you imagine it's in front of you, and then you ask it those 3 questions. And then you actually get up and you change places. And you go sit in a chair or on a cushion or whatever in front of you where you've been sitting, and you imagine that you become the demon. So you take a moment. How does it feel to be that size, that gender, that color? What's it feel like to be in that body? Take a moment and notice that in each of these situations, you keep going back to the body. It's not theory. It's like you keep touching in on the body. And then as that demon, you answer the questions. Like a disease might say, I want to incapacitate you. I want to kill you. Right? Or I want to make it show you are afraid. But then when you ask the question about need, it might say, what I really need is love and compassion. It's not always love and compassion, but it could be like power or something else. But it tells what I really need is. And then when I get that, when I get what I really need, I will feel. So how will demon feel when it gets that need met? That's the answer to the third question is very important. So let's say it says, when I get what I really need, I will feel peace. Okay, so now you have the answers to the three questions. You come back into the original seat, and then you see the demon in front of you again. You do all this with your eyes closed. And then you imagine this practice at 5 demons. I really simplify the body offering. You just simply imagine that your own body dissolves into nectar. And that nectar has a certain color. Notice what color it is. And then the quality of that nectar is the answer to the third question. In this case, the example I gave is peace. So the quality that that nectar has in it is peace. So that nectar begins to flow toward the demon that you see personified in front of you, and feed it, nurture it with that nectar of peace. Let's say the color you saw was blue. So it's a blue liquid that goes to the demon and feeds it, nurtures it, and offers it peace. So you feed it to complete satisfaction. So it's completely satisfied. And then notice what happens to it. You don't make anything happen. You just notice, oh, it's shifting. As it gets satisfied, shifting. Oh, now that big demon now became very small, and it actually looks like a little bird, like a bluebird. And then you ask that being that's there, are you the ally? Are you the ally? If it says yes, you work with that. If it says no, you invite the ally to appear. And then you see the ally. What size is it? What color? Does it have a gender? What's the look in its eyes? And so on. And then you ask the ally questions. How will you help me? How will you protect me? What is your pledge to me? And how can I access you? And then you change places and you become the ally. You take a moment to come into the body of the ally. and be that size, that gender, if it had a gender, in the mental state, the emotional state of the ally. You take a moment to become the ally. Feel what it's like to be in that body. And then you answer those questions. I will help you by I will protect you by my promise to you is you can access me by so now the allies answered those questions. You come back into your original body and you see the ally in front of you again. Fully there, fully present. And then you imagine that the ally dissolves into light. You notice the color of that light, and that light dissolves into you. And you feel that light, that luminosity going through all the cells in your body. It's like it's washing your body with luminosity. You notice how that feels. And then you, with the integrated energy of the ally, dissolve. Simply dissolve. And then you rest in what's ever present after the dissolution. Just rest. And then you come back into your own body with the integrated energy of the ally in your body. And you open your eyes and you have that transformed energy in your body. So that's the 5 steps. In a, abbreviated way, because we didn't actually do it, but I think maybe you did it a little bit. So now this method of the 5 steps has had 2 scientific studies done of it, testing it with control groups, and neuroscientists from Stanford is doing these studies with fear and depression and addiction. And then he did another study during the COVID about the fear, with the fear. And the results of these studies, the COVID one isn't done yet, but the other one is done now. And it hasn't been published yet. It's under peer review, but very positive results for this. So it's taking this practice of Chöd and then you can probably, if you know anything about Western psychology, you can recognize things in it that are similar to methods in Western psychology, but it's different in various ways. One is that the disillusion at the end into basically emptiness, although you don't say that. And then also the specificness of it. And as you said, it's personal, that it's something that everybody's demon looks different and everybody's ally looks different. So it's not, when you do the Chöd practice, it's more generalized. Although if you're really deeply in Chöd and say you're working with a disease, you do see it, you know, as an individual entity. But here you're working with your own personal demons. And I think this is helpful in the West because we are an individualized society. We're all about the individual, right? So a method that works with the individual is helpful.
Thank you so much, Lama Tsultrim Allione.
You're welcome.
That was incredible. Yeah, I think that we really did it.
Did you do it?
I did it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to schedule a whole new webinar just to talk about my experience. But thank you so much. It's a beautiful, beautiful method, and just thank you very much. That's wonderful. All right. Well, Menpa Wangmo Lab, can you tell us a little bit and share with us a little bit more? So we've been talking about this kind of imagery of demons, and now we've established very clearly that this is related with our inner conflicts, our attachments, our aversions, and then this can be these psychological attachments and aversions are very much can be related with our problems in life, our health issues, our physical body issues, our energetic issues, and our mental, obscurations as well. And so you told us how in Tibetan medicine, we have this kind of clear theoretical basis for how this is connected with our elemental balance and our elemental nyepa or humors. So now I'd like to talk a little bit, just kind of continuing from there. In Tibetan medicine and in the Tibetan Buddhist Dharma as well, we have this idea of a mental illness, of what we call dunne in Tibetan medicine, this provocation, disease, or disease caused by what we could call demons or entities. But again, as always, we have this direct correlation between that imagery of demons or entities and then our reality of our psychological health. So would you please explain to us a little bit from the perspective of Tibetan medicine, this idea of the dunne, the provocation disease, and what it means? And then also please tell us, what can we do about that, and how can we practically address that situation and benefit our fears and tensions and inner conflicts?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so the Tibetan medicine understanding of the dun, we said Gunda Dunki ne. So at the dun, since the beginning, they said it's not really is something that they concreted. So they said it's a gunne takpa, your thoughts, your visions. So you believe. So that is sort of like that the Gunda Dun. Gundak means is that one. So, and then when we have the provocation, so in the Tibetan medicine, we call that the Dun, so which is the provocation. So provocation, many times we believe one sort of like beings, like the spirits or the beings or the evils or whatever. But sometimes also that also not necessarily always someone outside, but that could be within you, inside you. So for that reason, I think we try to do all through understanding the minds, and then the secondary mind factors, and then functions, and then what are they, and then all those kind of thing is that the true understanding to discover all those like the problems within you. So this is sort of like that the Tibetan medicine, and then also the Tibetan Buddhism, we said that a lot. But still, we always sort of like our concept sort of like sense organ more like dealing with outside, and then we are like to see something outside, and we are like to blame something outside. And then normally we don't see our inner things. We always see the outside. So this kind of reason also we like to blame something to the outside. When we're talking like the like this time when we had the COVID-19 could be, there are also like reasons, to have the COVID-19 cause of that or conditions of that. But still we are sort of like thinking something came from the outside, someone's wrong, or somebody's wrong, or some animals wrong, or whatever, whoever they're wrong. So still we are thinking a group of somewhere is something happened. But when we're looking sort of like observe to us as like a collective karma, also the before the Gachin Rinpoche also, I think he also mentioned, because lately we are not kind to the nature. We are not kind to our other beings. Even we are not kind to the between us, human to human. So we became sort of like very selfish, very angry, very attached to something. So this is sort of like that the root of the problem is with us, not someone outside, not someone like the other beings on the other planet beings. With us as like a collectively. So may not individual us, we did something wrong, but is a last, centuries, we are sort of like not kind, not gentle to the nature. And that this kind of thing is, we say, is like now the cause of the problems. So recently we have more sort of like this kind of like a natural disease. And then we have more sort of like, the contagious disease. And then we have more sort of like the natural disasters. And then why this happening at this moment, this time, this planet where we sort of like living. And then in the Tibetan medicine and especially the Buddhism, they explained this is sort of like our karma, our result of our action. So this is also, I think, is one of the two understanding sort of like provocations. Once we done something wrong, because we have a lot of, as we said before, if we have a lot of this kind of like attachment, we wanted more and more and more and more. So the motherland is almost empty, but still we want it. We never say thank you now, and now we need to put back to the motherland. No, still we try to get back. And then, this kind of like a lot of pollutions, a lot of this, a lot of that, I think it's sort of like the main causing problems. So now this kind of like overall sort of like this negative result, which is coming back to us. And then maybe we understand those are the something like the negative evil spirits. Maybe we are thinking that way. Or we are not understanding our action, negative our action is we are not really seeing or understanding what we're doing. Then maybe we're putting these two evil spirits. So anyway, Tibetan medicine, that the Dön chapter is one of the very large topic. To study the Dön chapter, we need to study all those like mental concepts, secondary mental concepts, so on and so forth. So now I understood, finally, many times teaching, now I understood how that important things. Once we know all those things since the beginning, and then we try to pay attention more closely. So anyway, it's like the all together in the Tibetan medicine, also Buddhism, we say is like the root of all the problem is the marikpa. Marikpa is like unknowing or unseeing. So like the deluded, delusions, whatever we call like ignorance. So that is looks like that the entire causes, entire root. Through this delusion, ignorance, we are not able to see, or we are not able to be aware with the three poisons, and then not able to watch the my conducts, attachment, hatred, and also anger, also like the delusions. Through the ignorance, we're not able to follow that your diet behave. Sometimes when we talk in the behave, we believe is we go to gymnastic exercise enough, that is we believe sort of like then is enough to do the exercise. But the real sense is not that the enough. Also same also like a diet. We believe when we eat organic food, enough vegetables, fruit, then that is a healthy diet. That also too, it is a healthy diet. But I think is also not only that the healthy food for the body, but also we need a healthy food for our mind. So that is constantly, is when we observing like that the practice system, we eat 3 times a day. So that is looks like internationally standard, sort of like more or less 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and the dinner. But the practitioners, they do 6 times a day practice. Because is that each practice sort of like that the feeding to your mind, to giving like more nutrition food, to be more calm, more kind, sort of like not like the body is become fatter and their mind is become more empty and empty, not like that. So it looks like that the body is remain with a good size, whatever the healthy way. Meantime, the mind also need to get a lot of nutrition food. So that is more like that the teachings. So teaching does not mean is to become a Buddhism teaching, no, but it is like His Holiness, they say, you know, the common knowledge, common sort of like conduct. So those kind of be kind, nice, so on and so forth. The same thing also when we do like a physical exercise, that is important, but also exercise that the verbally, how to say nice, how to say kind, and then also special the mind. So I think all those kind of thing is a very important. So we clean the body, that is important, but at the meantime, we try to clean our mind. So at the moment we are talking the Chöd. So Chöd is one of the best clean your pollutions in your mind. So all those kind of things, I think it is a very important to keep us preventing the disease, to treat the disease, either physical problems or the mental problems. And then when we're looking sort of like a close, something like the physical aspects or the something like the spices, which can help for this kind of like a thing. Among these like 3 humors or the 3 poisons, is that the more active one is that the wind element or the attachment. So through the attachment is involved to the other anger. Why I'm angry? Because I wanted that, I'm not getting that, because then I'm angry. I wanted that because not getting that, so I'm now revenging. So the attachment also looks like is most of them is something connected to the attachment. Same thing also that the ignorance or the delusions. So for this kind of reason that attachment is that the main sort of like leaders. In the Tibetan medicine, we say is like when we're looking like the wind element. Lung ni nandin jugdu kyeptang jugpachi. So Lung is sort of like the leaders. Lung is like pervading. Lung is sort of to make everything into one sort of like round, and the Lung also cutting the last breath. So Lung as like a leader of all the disease. Lung is like spreading disease entire body. And then Lung is also to making sort of like tumors, cancers, or whatever, to rolling up. And then also Lung is cutting the final things. So like when we're looking like this time, the pandemic started from somewhere in the east, run to the west, came to the center. Now it looks like going back to the east, sort of like how they move is move through the wind element. So that is a Lung. Lung means is like energy move. With what they move, how they have the determinations, as a fire element is involved. For that reason is like that all the contagious disease has that the fire element and the wind element, or we call is like a heat rate cost or the attachment. Or we say is like the bio element and then the wind element. So these two is always involved because they determined to wants to move and then they're able to move, able to spread. So this is the wind nature. So for that reason, for the wind, when we're talking like treat something for the wind, and then we can do sort of like 4 different ways. Number one, we can change sort of like a little bit diet behave. And then number 2, sort of like we could have taken something supplement. Number 3, we could have do sort of like the external therapies. But a simple one, you can adding into your diet nutmeg, cloves, and cardamoms. So these 3 spices will be very good spices for in your food. So you can adding like if you want to do more specifically morning, you tried adding the cardamoms, because cardamom is one of the main medicine for indigestions, for the metabolic systems. If we have the good metabolic system, then that will prevent our protect our immune system, or the Tibetan medicine we call them dang. So today is too long topic, but is to protector of the body, mind, energy. So the cardamom protect the metabolic system, so that can protect the immune system. So that is cardamom is good. The middle day you can use as the clove. The clove is very good, is spicy. Is one of the main herbs good for the like heart valves on the heart. So this help to improve the circulations, to clean the tubes, and in the meantime also antivirus to protect those kind of like the things. And the Tibetan medicine we call is like the balancing the 2 natures, hot and cold. So simply is to improve the circulations, to keep the tubes clean. So that is good to take if you want, also like a middle day, or anytime you can take, but the best one is middle day. The reason is middle day that the outer nature is hot, the clove has a little cooling nature. Then the evening comes, it's good to take the nutmeg. Nutmeg is one of the main herbs for the cardiovascular in the Tibetan medicine. And special one is for the brains, so the medicine for brain. which means is the one of the best herb for the wind element. So for that reason, you can take the nutmeg in the evening. So nutmeg helps for the brain, for the heart, and to help to restrain all the vessels, to improve all the circulations. So these three you can take because it's simple when we're looking like at the morning herb, cardamom works for the pagan, which is earth and water element, all the indigestion groups. And the long-term goes back, it works for the ignorance. I'm not saying is the nutmeg is medicine for the ignorance, I'm not saying, but the nutmeg works for the fruit of the ignorance. Clove is works for the chipa, which is a fire element, all the aggressive, so on and so forth. So which is connected to the heat rate. Of course, the clove is not medicine for the heat rate, but the clove is medicine for the fruit of the heat rate. So means is helps. And the same thing is nutmeg is good for the wind element or the wind humor, which is we Tibetan call is lung. So that is all the mind movement, all the movements in our body, breathing, thoughts, circulations, all the movement in our body, physical, mental, verbal, energy, everything connected to this wind. So we need to calm the wind. Of course, we need to have a good energy, but also need to be calm. So for that reason is like the nutmeg is evening is very healthy. If you use approximately 1/4 teaspoon a day, and then luckily you will not have any side effect. Of course, if you go more than that, and some other circumstance, then you need to also consult with the doctors. But just you keep the normal sort of like dosage, as I said, like a 1/4 teaspoon a day would be very safe. So this is sort of like that in general when we look in the spices. Then another important one is that the yoga breathing exercise, because is our body is composed by the 5 elements. 5 element body need to constantly eat 5 element food to regenerate the 5 element. So out of 5 element, regenerate the inner 5 elements. So that's where we need to eat constantly. Also not only eat, but is different colors food, different taste food, different source food. So we eat a variety of food because to keep our 5 element body is to keep us healthy. Another one is not only we get the 5 element through the food, but also we get the 5 element through our breathings. So that is also more important aspects. So that reason also important to practice the inhaling, that the breathings, not only inhaling, but also breathing exercise. Of course, we are breathing all the day, all the time, all the night, you know. So according to Tibetan Buddhism or the medicine, we say 21,000 breathing a day in the night. So which is sort of like a pretty lot. So we do that breathing, inhaling, the exhaling. So when we do this breathing, inhaling, and exhaling, what are we doing is inhaling is simply breathing, but breathing comes with the 5 elements, not like just like air coming and air going, no. When we inhaling comes with the 5 elements. So for that reason, when you do the breathing, also with the concentrated, with the nicely, with the gently, is more sort of like aware, that also looks like very useful. Of course, also when we exhaling, what we're doing is something like a contaminated or the like impure or like the dirty air is going out. What we call maybe is unoxygenated, maybe they call. So something like the impure thing is going out. So when we're getting out of those airs, also you try to concentrate, try to thinking, okay, I'm exhaling all my dirty things, all my pollutions, physical dirty, mentally dirty, verbally dirty, karmic dirty, all things I'm throwing out through this breathing. Of course, each, like 21,000 of the breathing, each breath, we cannot think these kind of things because we are busy life. But we try to think at least twice a time, twice a day. Before go to work, after you wake up, we try to exercise one breathing. At that time also, you try to thank to your life. I have one more day, thank God. And they try to keep a sort of like a agenda, what I do today, I will try all the positive things. Evening comes, at the end you do one breathing exercise. You try to think, okay, I'm able to come home and then sleep on my bed. This also thank God. And in the meantime, you try to assuming, so like in summarize your agenda, did you do all the today you need to do? Creating more like a kind, loving, so those kind of able to achieve, yes or no. So all those kind of things I think is very useful. And then the final one I think is would be very useful. One is like the to be aware. In my teacher Rinpoche always say is to be aware. So that's I think useful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Menpa Wangmo. Excellent. So we have all of this healthy foods and these appropriate spices for nourishing and balancing to our body. But then we have our meditation practice and our pranayama yoga for nourishing to our mind, so that, like you said, we won't have our body getting fatter and our mind getting empty. We'll keep everything balanced that way. Thank you so much. That's wonderful teachings from a traditional Tibetan medicine that we can easily apply in our daily life. Well, Amchila Menpa Wangmo La, is there anything else in closing before we wrap up that you would like to say to finish?
Not so much. I just want to say thank you, Lama Tsultrim, your generosity teaching. And then I want to say, if you want to know more things about the Tibetan medicine, there is one book written by Rinpoche. Their call is Birth, Life, and the Death. So this book is basic all the Tibetan medicine, and then like a birth, life, and the death. So it's such amazing a book. So this is one would be good for you to read if you want to know more about the Tibetan medicine. And then another one also I want to say, if you have any questions, unclears, please contact with us. So you can contact to the Shang US or Shang Tenerife or Shang School of the Tibetan Medicine in Russia. So we try our best to answer that. And then I just want to say thank you, everybody, special for the listeners.
Thank you so much, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, Director of the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. It's been wonderful to receive your advice and teachings today. Thank you so very much. So our special guest, Lama Tsultrim Allione, thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything you'd like to share with us in closing before we finish for today?
If people are interested in my activities and what I was talking about, they could look at taramandala.org. It's our website. And just want to thank Phuntsog La for being a pioneer of coming from such a different country into a completely new culture, and then having to try to figure us out and teach the traditional medicine, and in a way that is really accurate and holds the tradition. So thank you for all the work that you're doing on behalf of Rinpoche and for Tibetan medicine. And so happy to spend this time with you, both of you, and everyone who's listening.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a nice, thank you. Such nice to be together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lama La. Thank you so much, Lama Tsultrim Allione, for joining us today. It's been truly delightful to hear your words of wisdom and hear about your teachings and practice. And thank you for leading us in that wonderful, delightful practice. It was truly a special treat. Wasn't expecting that. So thank you very, very much. Best of luck and wishes, many blessings for all of your work and endeavors, and to all of your students from around the world. And again, like we said, if you, for our audience, thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to learn more, I highly recommend checking out some of Lama Tsultrim La's books and texts. You can check out all of the content on taramandala.org. Also, I know that her excellent literary works are available online on Amazon, different ways to order the books. So please do check out her books and her content. And then also, as Menpa Wangmo said, if you would like to learn more about traditional Tibetan medicine and the Shang Institute, please visit us at TibetanMedicineSchool.org, and please join our email list. We would love to have you in the loop for our updates of our programs and our different offerings. And so please do check us out, follow us on social media. To all of our guests and audience around the world, it's been wonderful to have you join us today. Thank you so much. We feel very blessed to offer this webinar series to you, and we welcome your feedback and advice anytime. We love to collaborate with you. So again, I am Adam Okerblom, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is the Shang Institute School of Tibetan Medicine webinar series. Many blessings to all of you around the world. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you.